Okay, welcome community. Thank you for joining Just Us, an online gathering where Earth plus racial justice meet. I'm Rob Thomas, and I'm a member of the organizing team for the event. We are excited to see all of your radiant faces today. Just a few quick housekeeping notes as we get started. Please make sure you stay on mute throughout the session to make the space audible and accessible for others. If you have questions or shout outs, we invite you to use the chat box. I'll be keeping an eye on things as we progress and reply as needed. About 5 minutes before session ends, I'll drop a contact form in the chat box so we can send you the event recordings, highlights, and invitations to join our online community to continue building post-event. Please join me in waving in Alina Talladen, and let's get started.
Thank you. Welcome everybody, and it's Talladen actually, and for curiosity's purposes, it's also my pre-colonized last name is Talladen. So, but legally speaking, Talladen. A little background. So hi everyone, my name's Alina, also known as Mom Mockingbird, and we are here to explore lunch from a diaspora kitchen. And we're going to explore the connections between food, lands, how the last colonial era set the stage for the current agricultural industry, and of course, health, DNA, and the nutritious, delicious, alchemical potential of recipes, all those yummy things. So mabuhay, welcome. And we're just gonna do like an array of healthy, affordable dishes for the heartiest meal of the day that we call here lunch. And I'm still experimenting with cornbread, so I thought we should do it. We're in the South, let's try it. Cornbread, awesome. Pancit, which is a go-to meal in the Philippines. That's where my paternal lineage comes from. And this is like your original Asian fusion dish, because the Philippines, as it's being called since colonial times, it's an archipelago of many peoples, islands, languages, customs. It's like a historical port for all the other South Asian cultures, Chinese, Indonesian, even having connections with Oceania and India, also Africa with the travels of the Moors. They went everywhere. So it's diverse, and just a little history I want to insert because we have 45 minutes to do this. It was named that after Spain's Prince Felipe during around 333 years of Spanish colonization. And they just combined all the thousands of islands together and called it the Philippines. So yeah, little side note. And then we're also gonna make a power veggie slaw with local greens, and we'll do a little food demo on how to upcycle your food scraps before putting it in the compost, like how else can we make use of it. And then also a cilantro pesto with nutritional yeast and your beverage of choice. I'm drinking tea and water. And I would like to encourage siesta time because that's like the time to do it, but we won't because it's a full day of amazing, beautiful sessions. So we're all relaxing anyway in front of our screens. Okay, I'm gonna just list off the various things that you need for these dishes. So if you have them, gather them. You don't have to watch me, you just listen. If you don't have an item, just try to be creative and find a substitute. That's what it's all about. It's like resilient recipes. So gather the items, organize your space to work efficiently, clean your surfaces, and if you're ready, go ahead and start cleaning your vegetables, including beets, onions, just everything on the outside because we want to save the scraps for a stock. So make sure everything's clean. I'm actually borrowing a kitchen today. I'm not in my home because I don't use Wi-Fi, so I didn't want to have any interruptions. But I think I have everything I need. So anyway, I say it's the heartiest meal of the day because in many cultures around the world, midday, not breakfast, not dinner, is interpreted as the ideal time for the body to both eat the largest meal as well as have a period of rest. Yes, the time where you can be with your people and enjoy a meal together, go for a walk, take a nap, meditate, whatever you need to do before part 2 of the day. Because, we want to have energy throughout the day. We want to work with the cycles of our organs, absorb the nutrients at the most optimal time, and to be productive and present. Yeah, life. So before we get ready to make our meal, let me just go ahead and tell you the things that you need. Let me pull up my notes. So for the cornbread, you'll need 2 mixing bowls, probably a whisk or something, a cast iron pan or a baking pan if you don't have that. I left mine at home, but there happens to be this giant one here that I'm just going to use. It won't be filled that high. And then you'll need 4 tablespoons of oil. I'm going to use coconut oil for mine, but you can use olive oil or any kind of light oil. 1.5 cups finely ground cornmeal. I only had masa, which is usually used for tortillas, but I'm using it. Again, I'm experimenting, but if you can just find finely ground cornmeal, which this is very fine, go ahead and use that. And then a 1/4 cup sugar, 2 teaspoons baking powder, a teaspoon baking soda. You need salt, 2 large eggs, room temperature, which I'm going to grab so that they're room temperature, and some buttermilk. But if you're vegan, which I'm going to use just oat milk, you can try to make it buttermilk by adding a little lemon juice and kind of create a chemical reaction, but it doesn't seem to work for many alternative milks. I think soy is the best. So that's for the cornbread. And then for the power slaw, you just want to get pretty much any vegetable that you have around. And we're going to use that also for the pancit, which is a rice noodle dish. So hopefully you have rice noodles. You can use lo mein noodles. You can use angel hair pasta. If that's what you have, use it. Just follow the instructions on the package or whatever. So for my power slaw, I'm going to use apple, beets, red cabbage, carrots, celery, lots of garlic, and anything else that you want. Lemon, I'm going to use lemon, apple cider vinegar, or rice vinegar. A little bit of tamari. I have veganese. You can use mayonnaise. You can use yogurt, or you can completely change up the recipe and use like a tahini sauce or whatever. Be creative. Make it your own. And then your spice of choice. I'm going to flavor mine with cumin. I just love it. Okay. Pesto, easiest dish ever, usually with basil, but let's use cilantro. It's cheaper. And I'm going to use pumpkin seeds and garlic, lemon, olive oil, water, and nutritional yeast. We'll explain more later. And then, yeah, the pancit, it's pretty much all those vegetables and tamari and whatever you have. Lemon, and the rice noodles, of course, as well. Okay, so gather those things, and I'm just gonna kind of speak for a moment. I want to just like set the stage for why food is such a metaphor and tool for our own well-being as people, as cultures, as earthlings. After all, this event is about exploring where racial, social, and environmental justice meet. And so much of that has to do with food access, nutrition, and food quality. Food is our fuel, along with sunshine, water, and breath. These foundations of life are provided by nature itself, not humankind. Humankind has the power of creativity and intelligence, love and wisdom. Without love and wisdom, our creativity becomes corrupted, and our creations become tools of destruction. For example, social systems. The current global consumer empire is founded on extraction, exploitation, and disproportionate profit, and is imbued into society in such a way that makes it challenging to navigate without participating in it. The acquisition and control of land and her resources from centuries ago and to this very day is a journey of violence and oppression, the haves and the have-nots. The industrialization of food stemmed from plantation farming, as some call the conventional monocropped large-scale farms. Industrialization shares its history with the early wars of the last century, as many of us are aware. Big Ag's irresponsible design systems neglect the laws of reciprocity and respect and abuse people, degrade natural environments, destabilize cultures, economies, and health. In the present industrial food system, 1/3 of all food produced for human consumption is wasted annually at an estimated 1.3 billion tons. That's coming from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. 1 in 9 people around the world do not have enough food to lead healthy lifestyles, or about 795 million people, mostly in the so-called developing countries. I go like this because it's like, what were they before colonization happened? You know, this isn't a blame game. I'm just like saying, when we adopt these consumer cultures and we get pulled away from our relationship with land, where were we before? Were we developing or were we pretty good? You know. Anyway, the Amazon is burning, continuing to make way for cattle grazing and monoculture feed cultivation. Food apartheid is disproportionately occurring within communities of color and other marginalized communities, and that impact on physical and mental health is alarming and unjust. Capitalist free marketing has increased prices of common goods from other countries, making them more expensive to the locals who grow them, like coffee, olive oil, quinoa. Jungles, like in Sumatra, are destroyed of their native biodiversity and monocropped with palm to create that palm oil, which falls under over 200 names and is found in almost every consumer item, including non-food items like wellness products, shampoos, whatnot. Anything that comes in packaging probably has palm oil in it. Global pandemics prove the fragility of the current economic system, and climate disruptions are directly linked to the agricultural industry, or big ag. And these are just a few examples. The reality is, these impacts are not necessary. They occur because of bad design. It's not necessary to genetically modify foods in order to feed the world. It is not necessary to farm using methods which deplete the soil, increase carbon emissions, violate workers' rights, and tamper with natural resiliency. It is not necessary for fresh natural foods to be affordable and accessible only to certain demographics. We can see exactly how food justice is social justice, which is directly connected to environmental justice. Some would even call this a spiritual call to action for our Mother Earth and all her children, all of us. Conversely, a good design reflects a closed loop system, which provides for all. There's no waste. Every aspect has a purpose, a place in the cycle. Nature is a master of this. Consider the forest, which lives, dies, and recycles itself, continuing to nourish all life within its domain. Nature provides us with knowledge, and with that knowledge, we can change our lifestyles, our families, our communities, and heal our sacred relationship with our food and our earth. The recent colonization era has deeply impacted our shared reality, yet all this while, the truth of nature exists. What we experience is simply a result of our creative power, for better or for worse. There has been and continues to be oppression and injustice. And as we are awakening to our truth, to what we desire, and on our quest for happiness and health, we see how very much alive and resilient nature is. And when we change our reality, we change ourselves, and vice versa. When we act as healer, we empower ourselves and heal our reality. The land is always here for us if we are there for the land. I could go on and on. But where does that lead us today? Many of us are inspired to opt out of the dominant consumer culture and to replace it with ethical, responsible, and compassionate practices. Today, we're just going to get hands-on in the kitchen and work on practical daily aspects of life first. Self-care then becomes an act of resistance against the neo-colonial and industrialization of food, and as a manifesto for an empowered version of reality. So, meal time. If you aren't making food with us live, this is the time to eat your lunch anyway. So, bon appetit! Thank you, Mother Earth, and all the hands who made it possible to get this food before us, and thank you everyone for being here with me today. We're just gonna flow, I guess. Okay, so cornbread. Heat your oven up to 450. Wow, this is not my oven. Okay, that should be good. Again, everything's clean. I cleaned everything. So you need your 2 tablespoons of oil. I already have my cast iron pan oiled but go ahead and add a couple tablespoons of oil into your dish. And whisk together the 1.5 cups cornmeal. I have a 1/4 cup sugar. I'm looking at a recipe now and I can't see myself anymore. I can see Rob though. Hi. So 1/4 cup sugar. I'm actually using coconut sugar. You can use turbinado or just regular sugar if you have, but beware of that bleached stuff, y'all. Beware. It's hurting our oceans also. And then you'll want 2 teaspoons baking powder. Da, da, da. Da, da, da. If this were a real cooking show, I would have all this stuff prepped and stuff because we would do this in like 10 minutes. But we have time. And then 1 teaspoon baking soda. Some salt, like a teaspoon. You might know how to make cornbread better than me, but we're just gonna do it together. Okay. And you just want to whisk that up, mix it up. Maybe I should play some music. I don't know if you can hear that. I don't want to be too loud. And then for your 2 eggs, you know, you want to get them to be room temperature, like I said. Go ahead and crack those. Oh, this is so fun. All right, so you did all that. I advise you to save your eggshells, by the way. You can wash them and grind them up, let them dry and grind them up. They are really beneficial for tomato plants. You can add them into your pot or your garden bed where you're growing tomatoes. And if you don't want to do that, just throw it in your compost, whatever. So then you want 2 cups buttermilk. Again, I'm using oat milk. I have my liquid measuring cup. 2 cups. Wish I could have multiple screens going on. Whisk up my egg. And so eggs, milk together, and then obviously you're gonna mix that with the dry goods. And more oil. Don't forget, 2 more tablespoons. Actually, I'm just gonna use this awesome, it's so light. I found it at the Copian Company, but it's algae oil. Doesn't have a taste. It's very, very light and healthy. So 2 more tablespoons go into the recipe. The volume good? Like my speaking voice? I can only see Rob. Great, thanks. Thanks for being here, everyone. Okay, mix it up. I'm going to use my wooden spoon, and you just want to kind of lightly mix it. Where did I put my wooden spoons? Here we go. Till it's moist. Once the oven's heated, you know, put it in your pan and pop it in, but make sure to turn the timer on for about 15 minutes or until it's golden brown. It might be 20 minutes. Just put that timer on because we are multitasking at this point. Okay, we'll see. We'll see how my masa flour does with this cornbread mix. So pouring it in. Boom. I don't even know if you can see that. Oh, great. Again, I would have used like a regular baking pan, but that's what we have. Okay, so when that beeps at me, we'll pop it in 15-20 minutes. Great. Moving on, the power slaw. So you need all your vegetables and Maybe you have a food processor. I'm going to use one, but if you don't have that, of course, use your little grater. We're going to use the food processor later as well for the pesto. So again, since this is all live, I'll chop veggies with you. Beets. I'm just going to, as I said before, you want to just make sure to clean everything. Like I scrubbed all the peels and I'm saving them. And you can just collect food scraps like that, even onion peels, garlic peels. This is all great for a stock. So just build it up and you can keep it in your freezer until you have enough for a stock. Why waste? I have carrots. Let's see what this looks like. Oh, you can't see my food. Great. Carrots. I'm just prepping for the food processor, which is going to do all the work. You know, my favorite knife for cooking. I got it at the Asian shop, of course. So celery, this is one of those vegetables that you really never have to buy. Because if you just cut off the base and you stick this in a little bowl of water, it's gonna start growing. It's so cute, it's just gonna start growing. I also like Daikon Radish. I need to find my peeler. Okay, here it is. I know, it's a cramped kitchen. So beets. Yes, you can eat beets raw, but finely chopped, finely shredded. It's got this very earthy taste when it's raw. I never knew that until, well, I was living in New Orleans seems like a long time ago now. And one of my best friends at the time, Ross Shamash, oh, I should have told you about this Ross Shamash. I think he moved back to New York City. He's my elder, and he used to have a vegan restaurant in Atlanta called Lush Life. And he was known as the singing chef. He did jazz, of course. But he's the one that told me, beets raw. So good. So literally just anything. I'm going to keep the peels on my carrots. Again, I washed them. I am peeling the daikon, which I also washed. And I'm not going to use this whole thing. I don't know why I'm peeling the whole thing. Whatever. Vamos a bailar. I'll just cut it. So anyway, it's like food that you can make for a lot of people. That's the whole, what I wanted to do here. Okay, that's that. I'm just gonna pop it in. It's gonna be a little loud. More speeches to come, by the way. More speeches to come. And of course, feel free to share your comments. We talked about a lot of things already, and I would love to hear your thoughts, truly. So when you cut the celery, you know, sometimes there's dirt like inside the groove, so I'm just gonna wash it again. And for the celery, I'm actually just going to kind of cut it. Okay, so I just noticed that I don't actually have the settings to my food processor that I needed for this. So I'm saving that. I will end up hand grating it with you. Boom! A little weird now because I cut it. Hi. How's it going, folks? Yep. Awkward. Where's my whole film crew? Like I said, I wouldn't have cut the carrots like this had I known I was hand grinding it. But yeah, you just want slices. It's kind of like a coleslaw that we're making. Yeah. Totally different flavors. So what we're doing is making foods that you can make ahead of time and just keep in your fridge that you can either snack on or eat as meals as needed. A lot of us live very busy lives. Wow, this is so annoying now that I cut these carrots. And these dishes can be eaten cold. The pancit can be eaten cold or hot. That's awesome. I think I'm just gonna grab another carrot. We'll make it easier. Okay. Really, I don't need to make a whole lot. La la la. I don't see anyone live cooking with me. What is happening? I'm just kidding. No pressure. I'll just make a small version. How about that? So, carrots. I'm using a bigger bowl. Carrots. Small kitchen. Small kitchen. Celery. It's messy. I'm trying. Not a lot of space. Move things.
Sweet, very sweet, Alina. I hear you singing and humming a little bit. I know you can give us a song.
Ooh, you want to sing while I chop? Since you're not cooking. I like that you unmuted
It's a good
yourself, Melody.
challenge.
Sing to
That's
us.
a good challenge.
Yes. Who's open for that?
Yes, I was just thinking you might want some like participation happening here.
Yes.
No,
Let's do it.
you know,
While
since
Melody sings, I'm slicing the beets.
we're in this time of wellness, trying to make sure that we're feeding our bodies the appropriate food, whole foods diet, right? Like vegetables, cells. There's this little song. Someone took the it's a traditional African American song that actually had a negative meaning before, and they've switched it up so you'll recognize the melody to this. Now it's talking about our cells. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. I'm so glad every little cell in my body is well. Does anybody recognize melody?
Yeah.
Yeah, shortening. It was not a good song before, but it was about shortening bread. If you look up the history of it, you'll see that it was very, very negative during the time of enslavement, and it was being used to say that, you know, enslaved Africans and their children could kind of deal with any type of hardship, and all you got to do is give them a little sugar and they'll jump up and get energized and be able to do all. So I know, and it used the N word and everything, that song originally, but they've switched it up. Someone recently just switched the words to help people during this time. So that's my offering.
Thank you, Melody. That was perfect.
I'm not feeling 100% right now. I have a little cough, a little cold, something going on. So a little raspy, but I'm enjoying.
Thank you for sharing that. That was so perfect. So I forgot to mention that really our first step should have been mincing the garlic. When you mince garlic, I'm just gonna have you mince a bunch ahead of time because we're gonna use it in the pancit. But obviously we want some for this power spa too. But there's a cool thing about garlic. When you let it oxidize after you chop it up, whether you're crushing it or mincing it or whatever, when you oxidize it for like 10 or 15 minutes before you add it to heat, which we're not doing for this recipe, but we will for the pancit, it actually allows the enzymes to form fully and lets you just receive all of the awesome benefits of garlic. Little facts of the day. Thanks for being here, everyone. Okay, we're doing this. I'm chopping up. I like garlic. Obviously, we should all be eating garlic right now. Keep our immune systems good. If any of you caught Tyson's cooking interview earlier today, we were talking a lot about ramps, which is like a local lily. It's a plant of the lily family. You can find it all over these forests, and it's so good for you. It's like a delicate version of onion or garlic, and really just helps us cleanse and boost our immune systems. Very crucial. So anyway, chopping up some garlic. On time. Good. I started a little late. Mincing the garlic. So basically, I like to add a little apple to this recipe as well. This was kind of inspired by a friend. So I'm gonna rinse my measuring cup before wash it out.
You're getting a lot of thanks in the chat box for the tip on the garlic.
Say again?
Said you're getting a lot of thanks in the chat box for the tip on the garlic.
Oh, cool. You're welcome. So apple. This is like dank coleslaw that we're making here. Chopping up the apples. I'm just gonna like make little diced apples. Mixing it in. We're almost done. Again, these are all pretty quick. I'm just multitasking and in a new space. All my little cells are happy. What a cute song. So for the sauce part, garlic. I mentioned before that I'm using vegan eggs, which this is the soy-free version. But again, you can use regular old mayo if you want. I encourage you to make your own. You know, obviously make it proportionate to whatever you have. Tamari, which is basically like soy sauce, but it's it's just a different, same flavors. It's gluten-free, fermented goodness. I'm just kind of adding a little for the flavor. And I'm going to use apple cider vinegar. But you can use rice vinegar. You could use just lemon. I'm eyeballing it. It's kind of all to taste, you know. And then again, your spices of choice. I'm using cumin. I like to use a lot in this dish, like just make it overpowering with cumin. I'm also going to, I just dropped something. I'm also going to add a little cayenne. just a smidgen. By the way, raw jalapeno, if you take the seeds out, in this dish is really good. If you like that. Wow, I'm making a mess up in this place. Normally I don't do that. So I'm adding quite a lot. I want this to be flavorful.
Melissa Henry says this is the perfect time to get our bodies resistant to infection. Great ingredients, Alina.
Thank you. I'm adding a little honey. It's local honey. It's gonna take a while to get out. Na na na. Wow, that's some good honey. Just a little sweetener, a little sweet and savory. ¿Por qué no? So again, you could like literally use whatever vegetables you have. I just happen to have these. So I'm mixing it. I don't know how the lighting is. I'm mixing it in. I didn't add any extra oil because the Vegenaise is pretty oily, but you could. Oh, I should have told you should taste that first. Make sure you like that sauce before you mix all your stuff in there, but it's good. Colorful. Whee! You might want to add more salt, whatever. This is really, really good stuff. Also for the COVID stuff, COVID-19, a lot of people are a little concerned about consuming raw foods, which I get, but there's really less of a risk for foods because you're eating it and it's going through your digestion system. So it's not like the most risky thing in the world to have uncooked foods at this time. As long as you're making sure everything's been cleaned and you're not touching your face all the time. Great, so that's a power slaw, folks. We're gonna put that in the fridge. I encourage adding herbs and pretty much anything. If you had more greens, that'd be great too. We're gonna use greens in our pancit. So, back to the pancit. Once again, actually it was my German mother that taught me how to make this, which she obviously learned from my father. And it's just kind of like your go-to dish. Usually you would add a little fish sauce into this. Like a lot of pad thai dishes have a little bit of that for flavor. I'm not gonna do that. It's okay. We're going vegan today, which I normally do anyway. Sometimes I eat the fish sauce. But that's okay. And oftentimes you will add like a meat protein if that's how you eat. I don't. Maybe I would add tempeh or something, but you would cook up some of that too. A lot of times people add shrimp. But why? There's no need to be traditional about anything, really. Adapt it. We're going to talk about epigenetics a little bit later. And that is like studying genes in relationship with wherever we actually are. Like we might not be in our ancestral lands. We might not be consuming our ancestral foods. So like how does that impact us? And how do we create a balance with our needs? Because I want to do my best to eat locally, which is really good for my biome and obviously good for the region for so many reasons. I hope this is entertaining. I'm adding my cornbread, by the way. And I'm setting my timer. Whoa, not that high. That oven is kind of finicky. Okay, so I brought my ceramic pan here. Use whatever you have, a wok. I'm just going to use the same oil that I showed you before because it's so light. And heat that up. Okay, that's working. Great. So what I have is purple cabbage, but normally we would use Napa cabbage. It's green, all over Asia. But what we have is this from a local grower. And again, I'm aerating my garlic over there. To go with the garlic, I'm gonna just chop up a little ginger. Peel it. I'm knocking everything over. Not always graceful. Life just sometimes just isn't. That's okay. So you want the onions. I'd say the main ingredients, you want that celery and carrots and the cabbage. That's pretty much like your main vegetable option. I don't think it's really pancit without that celery and carrots. I just don't think it is. But add whatever you want. I'm also going to add some water chestnuts because I happen to have them. And again, I'm using purple cabbage. So in this case, you want to julienne your carrots and celery. That means like making them into kind of longer, thin strips. Taking that off the heat. Don't want to burn your oil. So feel free to engage in the chat box. I'm curious, how do you all typically prepare your meals? Are you frying vegetables? By the way, carrot, that's how big I'm making mine. Frying them. I like to steam them. And then I have like a bamboo steamer, but you can just use whatever steamer situation, just a little water. Not boiling them. I like to preserve like the life-giving qualities of the foods as much as possible. And again, like how did we used to make things? A lot of times we picked up cooking habits because we had to, because that's what we were given. That's what was around, not just us, but like over the last several generations and such. We might have had to change our diets. I love learning about like the history of soul food, like plantains, for example. Throwing unripe plantains at, well, people who were about to become slaves on the boat. And it's like, that's your food. Here's a bunch of just raw, unripe plantains for you to live off of for a week or whatever on this boat. And they had to figure out, you know, like, how do I best prepare this? And kind of double cook the green ones, smash them, and cook them some more. And that's like the savory kind. There's the maduro and tostones that I've learned. And then as it ripens, you can cook it, and it's the sweet kind. It's just like, soul food. It just like shows, again, the creativity of culture and the resilience of people.
We have a couple responses in the chat box. Melissa Henry says purple cabbage is a great source of antioxidants and other beneficial plant compounds that help protect against cellular damage. Its antioxidants include vitamin C. Ginger also has powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. And Joy Ma'at says that her favorite way to have veggies is roasted and live.
Mm. Yes. And yeah, thank you for that nutrient info and sharing all that. This is fun. Interactive. Thanks, Rob, for being the moderator. Yeah, I mean, what's peasant food? It's people's food. Like, this is how we get our nutrients, and it's affordable, you know? I'm gonna throw in some kale also. More local foods. Oh. I forgot the onion. Now, maybe you can use, huh?
Melissa Henry also says, I read recently that African women who feared being kidnapped eventually began braiding seeds into their hair to prepare for having to survive as a captive in a hostile land.
Yes. I first heard that from Leah Penniman when I read her book, Farming While Black, which is so awesome, by the way. Check that out. It's like your how-to manual. It's so nicely organized and full of amazing wisdom. And yeah, I heard that story, and it's like no wonder so many of the foods have African origins, you know, and Caribbean.
She added that those seeds became the cash crops that fueled this imperialist monster, such as rice, yams, and okra.
Yep. Yep. That was like first cultural appropriation to the max, you know? Like, let's just take these things from people that we're abusing and just get rich off of it. Crazy. But we're in a new time. We're reclaiming our foods and adapting them as global citizens wherever we may be. So I'm going to stick this in the pan. Keep sharing, keep sharing. I'm going to put the garlic and onions first, but I don't want to cook them too much. I'm going to boil some water, and this is going to be how we make the rice noodle. There's no kettle over here, so I'm just going to do that. And we'll move on to the next recipe while that happens.
Melissa adds, our highly skilled ancestors were sought as artisans and agricultural specialists.
Yes. So again, you can adapt these recipes however you like it. I'm making thin leaf sliced cabbage. I'm gonna try to speed it. Oh my God, it's almost 1! I can't believe it. Okay, how about I just describe to you how to make the pesto? And we'll just go. I was worried that I wouldn't have enough time to do all this because when I was practicing in my head, it was like, wow, that took 30 minutes. What am I gonna do? Okay, it's okay, we got this. Adding that. Now it is like a cooking show. We're just gonna pretend it all magically happened. So let me read the ingredients for the pesto, because that stuff is so good, and you can just, it's amazing. So you want your food processor or your blender, and a rubber spatula so you don't waste anything. You need 2 cups of packed cilantro. Obviously, traditionally it's basil, but this time cilantro. And then 3 tablespoons pumpkin seeds. You can use sunflower seeds, you can use the traditional pine nuts, walnuts, whatever. 3 large garlic cloves, a couple tablespoons of lemon juice, and then about 4 tablespoons of the nutritional yeast, 1/4 teaspoon salt, you need a couple tablespoons of olive oil and water, but you add those last. So in your food processor, add that cilantro. You can use the stems, no waste. You can toss in the nutritional yeast and all the other ingredients except for the oil and water. You're gonna add that slowly as you pulsate it and mix it up to the consistency that you want. So it's the easiest dish ever. We're substituting with cilantro because it's cheaper, and why not? But as summer gets going and we're growing our own basil, we can make it traditionally galore. And this is a vegan version of it. The nutritional yeast, it substitutes the cheese. So even if you're not vegan, if you're just trying to lighten up on your dairy intake in general, or if you're just trying to make this a more cost-effective version of pesto, this is amazing. It's the same species of yeast used in beer and bread, but this is the kind for cooking. It's also gluten-free, if that's not obvious already. It creates the creaminess that you want in the pesto. So you really don't need the cheese. It's amazing. And it's full of trace minerals, vitamins, and hard to get ones like the B vitamins. So again, vegans make this stuff because you need those B vitamins. It's a complete protein, meaning that it contains all 9 essential amino acids that humans need. So mix that up. The pancit, I just turned the heat off. And for rice noodles, there's just, like I said, use the noodles that you have, but these you don't even really cook. You just stick them into warm water for like a few minutes and it gets to the consistency that you want, and then you're just going to add it into your vegetable dish. Mix a bunch of tamari, fish sauce if you want, and then when you plate it, you want to squeeze lemon juice over that and maybe garnish it with green onion. So it's awesome stuff. Simple, but healthy, and can feed a lot of people if you make a lot of it. So anyway, I wanted to talk about all kinds of things, but do I have time to like say 5 minutes of something? Yay, nay, yeah. Okay, sweet. Great. Okay, so I just wanted to like talk a little bit about epigenetics, health, and diaspora, because this is the diaspora's kitchen right now. So you might have grown up again with certain foods that at some point you realized might not be the best thing for your body. And we're just all susceptible to that because we're under the influence of consumer culture and that insidious industrial agricultural system. They just make it so difficult to source what's best for us, and especially in communities experiencing food apartheid. It's like what's on the shelves is what's available. If you're not growing food, you're buying from that shop. And even when we are growing our own food, we're still shopping for things like dry goods and other staples. So ultimately, it makes us vulnerable to these people. And so it's like now, even now, amidst this global pandemic, there's talk about food shortages. So now more than ever, we should all feel inspired to cultivate more direct relationships with our food sources and, be a member of food cooperatives, support your local farmers, do crop companion planting and crop rotation with your neighbors. If you want to grow okra and these other things, they can grow that. You could trade, work that out. I learned that when I was in the lower 9th ward. Like, wow, even in the city, people grew different things in their backyards and just traded. Common sense, but we have to go back to that. So anyway, it's like not just even in the United States, but other countries, this disconnect from our food acts as a kind of gateway to the disempowerment and degradation of the health of entire communities. Even when I was visiting my family in the Philippines, I went to a neighboring village up in the mountains. You had to hike in to get there. No vehicles could make it. They were a very isolated tribe, the Kalinga people. They never were conquered by the colonizers, but I noticed what colonization didn't do, capitalism is doing. And I found everywhere, Nestle, instant coffee, even though it's being grown, same thing in South America, it's all being exported. And so the people are left with Nestle instant coffee, which is full of pesticides. It's one of those top crops that uses pesticides, which is, I love coffee. Okay, I'm guilty of that. but it's like, you know, you can source more ethically. You can look for companies that are buying and supporting farmers directly. Some of them are farmer co-ops that you can get, and they're even practicing things like shade grown, which is how coffee traditionally was grown. So anyway, the epigenetics part that I wanted to say is like, epigenetics is about how our genes are either being activated or weakened based on the foods that we're eating, the climate that we're experiencing, or what we're even doing. Like, I feel really good when I go to the ocean because it's just in my DNA. Like, our ancestors are literally guiding us through our genes, but we want to match that if we are children of diaspora, which I am. You know, we want to balance that creatively and following our own individual intuition. Like, how do I fuse ancestral foods and activities and meet them with what I can find around me locally, growing in the forest, growing in my garden? Because then it's like the perfect match. And hopefully we activate our DNA so that we can just meet our thriving, potential, healthy selves and promote local economies by supporting local food systems and introducing local bacterium into your body, which builds immunity. It's like, we all know that when we have local honey, it helps with our allergies because it's like the bee is eating pollen from the environment. It's like nature's beneficial vaccine. It's like that concept, you know? So we want to eat local as much as possible while honoring our genes. So anyway, this was a Filipinx fusion kind of thing. You honor your DNA and your cravings, and you're gonna be just fine. And let's work together. And I'm rushing to say goodbye because I know it's time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Alina. That was amazing.
I made a mess.
You taught so much. Thank you.
Thank you all. Ooh, wait, before you sign off, I'm copying all of these chats. Chats. Thank you for sharing, everyone. I really appreciate it. Stay tuned for all the other yummy things happening for the rest of the day.